All right, here we are. It is 1 o'clock. And to everyone that took the time to stop by and see what Pronovos is up to, we're talking about boosting AR collection efficiency with construction analytics. And we are excited to do this. I know personally, I am excited. I have been wanting to do a webinar with Lisa Ballman, who I will introduce in just a second. But for those that don't know me, my name is Bruce Orr. I am the founder and chief data scientist at Pronovos. I am here with a very talented and smart person, Lisa Ballman, who's the principal at Pinion. And Lisa, if you will, why don't you give us an introduction of who you are?
Thanks, Bruce. That sounds great. Yeah, as Bruce said, my name is Lisa Ballman. I work for Pinion. Pinion's a relatively new name for our firm. We were previously known as Keiko Isom, or prior to that, Kennedy & Co. So we've gone through a couple name change iterations, but we are actually located throughout the United States. We are a top 70 accounting firm, work with clients personally in the Midwest regions, mostly in the Kansas, Colorado, Nebraska, Oklahoma areas, kind of where I play at most of the time. And our firm as a whole is about 700 employees, and we are about 121 million in revenue for a size comparison for other public accounting firms. But I've been working in construction for the past 20 years, and I'm excited to partner with Bruce to discuss the AR topic today.
Nice, nice. And just for everyone that has joined, we're going to talk about pretty much the pitfalls related to inefficient AR collections, and specifically how it impacts bonding. We'll talk about analytic workflows and how to streamline the collection process, best practices for implementing analytics into your AR collection workflows, and then last, we'll go over the future trends and development efforts that we have with here at Pronovos, and we'll have time for Q&A. Now, we have told you who we are, so what I'm going to do is just launch a quick poll. We'd like to get to know you, so if you wouldn't mind, just taking a few seconds to let us know who you are, or the type of contractor you are, and that would be a big help. So I'll just leave this up for a few seconds here. So Lisa, it looks like we have quite a few specialty contractors and general contractors that are joining. I'm curious, at Pinion, is there any particular type of contractor that you all are better suited to serve, or is it across the board?
We do work across the board, but a lot of the work that we do with general contractors is in the commercial space versus the residential space. And then on specialty contractors, we do work with a lot of HVACs, electrical, plumbing contractors. And we have a couple of heavy highway guys as well that we work with. So we play in a few different areas.
Nice. Okay. All right. Yeah, we definitely have 44% more specialty contractors. All right, so let's get into it. Lisa, I have a couple of questions for you. So, in your experience, what pain points are you seeing with collection efficiency?
Right. I think when I look at the clients that are currently trying to manage their, cash collection cycle, AR collections is a huge piece of that. Kind of starts with the processes they have in place to make sure things are not falling through the cracks, that they are getting billing completed timely and out the door, and then monitoring those AR collections to make sure there's not problems with their end customers, and having good conversations and good relationships with those end customers so they really have a handle on what's going on inside and external to their business.
Yeah, that does make sense. So it's interesting. We're in a very different landscape in terms of money. We all know that it costs, more to borrow money. And my next question is, now that the cost for borrowing money is greater, how are you seeing this affect your client?
Right. I think that's a great point because a lot of clients are in a growth phase right now. There's a lot of surplus of work out there to go get. So it's a great place to be at for our industry to see that happen. But some clients are finding that they are coming up against either the limitations of their current line of credit, meaning they need to get a larger line of credit to handle the increased volume they're dealing with. And of course, then that's coming with, as we see the interest rates come up, we're seeing that affect our clients as well, that the cost of money to finance projects um, is increasing. So they got to keep that in mind as they're bidding work. Sometimes, depending on what type of contractor you are, how fast those contracts turn through. You may have bid a contract 12 months ago thinking your line of credit was only going to be a 3.5%, and now we're getting some of these up to 6.5%. So 2% on $1 million can start to add up pretty quick. So that's something we're seeing our clients having to deal with and trying to make sure they're keeping their overhead rates in sight and top of mind as they're bidding projects.
Yeah, I imagine for clients that already have tight margins, it can certainly impact them tremendously. Which brings me to the last question. And it's really interesting. I cannot wait to hear your response. But do you find that your clients are including higher interest rate payments into their forecast? Are they actually saying, I know I need to lean on this and I need to include it in my forecast?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think the answer is a mixed response on that. Some folks are a little more foresight and go, oh yeah, you know what, I can really see this happening. I'm getting my overhead rates communicated to my estimators so that they understand we've got to include that at future work at a higher cost. Hopefully I've got more clients on that side than on the other side of it, but it is something that kind of gets sometimes communication breaks down and it doesn't get communicated across the board that, hey, we've got to make sure we keep this in mind as we're doing those estimates.
Yeah, yeah. We have seen low interest rates for a very long time, and now we're just in a different territory. So all of these questions and your answers, I think, plays very well into the next segment of this. And this is really the common pain points and best practices for managing AR. Tell me about poor communication between the field supervisors and office staff and why it's important not
Right.
to have this.
I think that's something you hear over and over again. You can never communicate enough, right? And so that's something everyone is always trying to work on. And the common pain point you hear is like, well, the field guys have their responsibilities and they're out there in the job dealing with a bunch of other things. And then you have the office staff asking for information and everyone's kind of running different directions. And so it's easy to have something fall through the cracks and not get communicated. So one of the things too the industry struggle with is it's been a really paper-driven industry for a long time, and everyone's trying to use technology to overcome those hurdles to have it more real-time communication versus handing an invoice or handing off timesheets or whatever it might be between the field and to the office. So one of the things, I guess, is we got to talk through some of the communication issues that we see happen is that the field guys know where they're at on a project. They've got the timelines down based on the quantities of measurement for that particular job. And then the office staff is trying to understand, okay, when do I need to send out the next AIA billing? Or if this is a time and materials job, when is it appropriate to do the billing? So obviously the best way to help manage cash is to get that bill out the door so you can start that collection cycle. So billing timely is hugely important to start that cycle process. Couple other things that I think is so important from a process standpoint is really concentrating on your change order management process. So there's oftentimes you're on a job that, while you're there, the customer asks you to do one more additional thing and you agree to do it. Maybe it gets verbally agreed to, and you have best intentions to get that change order processed and documented. But there's an occasion where you'll get to the end of the job, you're like, why are my costs higher in this job than what I've billed for? And it's important to have that job debriefing to understand if there was out of scope work completed. trying to go after getting that billed and collected still. Obviously, you have terms of your contract you're trying to comply with, but it's also sometimes a handshake still does do some deals in this business. So. And then finally, just communicating that when the job is finished and 100% complete, that we're making sure we've got everything in place to get, if that job is subject to retainage, that we're getting everything in place and to the GC so that we can get paid our share of the retainage as soon as it's available and paid to them.
That makes sense. I think you and I are in a fortunate position to talk to many contractors and hear the processes that are working for them as it relates to retainage. I know there are some contractors that are requesting release of retainage whenever a project hits a certain percentage, or at least put the team on alert that we need to prepare to invoice for the retainage. Are you finding other processes that are more creative than that, or like how are you finding contractors are what they do to be successful to ensure that they're collecting the retainage?
Yeah, I think the piece is how timely can you get that, and obviously it's subject to when the customer ultimately pays the general contractor, then general contractor pays its subs. So it's just trying to make sure you have all your ducks in the row so that the GC is not waiting on you to submit something to pay you retainage. So it's making sure that you are being proactive and everything that you can control is provided. So whether that be some of the final paperwork, just making sure that's getting uploaded to, that was one great thing about there's certain contracts that have sites you upload to, and so you can get that to be more timely versus having to get emailed and get lost in someone's email and that type of thing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So I will be remiss if I did not actually connect this to Pronovos and how we are addressing some of the things that you just talked about. So with AR collections, you can't collect unless you invoice, you bill, right? And depending upon the size of contractor you are and the number of bills you have to send out, it could be a daunting task. And what we try to do in terms of analytics is we try to give visibility into the office in terms of what bills are needed. You talk about it being timely. So you can essentially run this at any point. And you identify certain things about your jobs. If you have jobs with cost, hopefully you can bill for those. So what we try to do is bring it to surface to let you know exactly what you need to focus on so that you can bill and then start collecting on it. And below we have all of your project managers. Which of these project managers haven't billed? And who and what are those bills? What are those jobs? I really like this because, again, it gives you all of the visibility. Not only is it that you see who you need to bill, but also the amount that you are expected to bill. And then any other details, we try to provide that to you. So you made a very great point related to you got to bill in order to collect. So I think that's essentially a great point. I know we have a very short time to be on this webinar, so I'll now segue to our next one, which is overbillings.
Yes, exactly. So in the percentage of the completion calculation that we often do for our jobs, the term overbillings is definitely our friend when it comes to financing the job with the customer's money versus our line of credit is definitely the way to think about this. I think one of the things to kind of consider through the last few years with the pandemic, there's always been some supply chain disruption. And so we're seeing a lot of customers having to pre-order, especially any specialized components to that job, take the HVAC, that type of thing. You'll have huge units you're bringing in early so that you have it available when you're ready to install it on that job. And so you're having to potentially store some significant materials that are ready to be installed as soon as that job is to that point. So obviously you have to think about the terms that your contractor under, but it's always best practice that, bill as soon as you can for stored materials and that type of thing, so that the customer is sharing in those costs as you go versus having you finance until it's fully installed. So um, the percentage of completion calculation definitely is our friend in looking at overbillings and making sure we're trying to stay in advance of that as much as possible. One of the other concepts that you'll see is job borrow. So with the disruptions in timing, a lot of projects would be, maybe it used to be it was an 8 to 12 week completion cycle, and now it's getting to the point where you're getting more like, okay, we're going on to 2 to 3 months completion cycle. So it just is dragging out. So sometimes we're getting to a place where it used to be turning really, really fast. That job borrow concept sometimes would come into place where your receivables are not turning as fast, but then you end up basically having a place where your job borrow happens when your costs to complete are exceeding what you're going to collect in that contract for a little bit of time. So it's kind of always borrowing for the next job to finish that one. And that can definitely cause some cash flow crunches, but it's just one of the things on the percentage of completion calculation to think about as you go into the overbillings of, have you held back enough cash from those overbillings to fully complete that job for your estimated costs.
So it's interesting. You and I, we spoke earlier about the concept of job borrow, and a light bulb actually went off in my head, and I started to think about the WIP and how when you recognize the over under billings, like for instance, if I really just wanted to look at the jobs that are under billed, I most often am seeing that the job borrow here is always negative. And if I guess you're having a substantial a substantial under billings on all of your jobs and your job borrows are negative, then you're tapping into that line of credit. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah. And so I think I love the concept of really trying to be overbilled as much as possible, so that you are not borrowing from the job. And what I'm showing now is in Pronovos, the WIP process that our clients go through, we try to automate it as much as possible. What we're trying to do is take a lot of the guesswork out. We want you to focus on analyzing the data and asking questions, going back to what Lisa was saying about the communication. Spend more time in dialogue and not the time extracting the data, creating calculations. But this is where Pronovos, I think, is shining a little more, is just trying to automate all of this. Are there any other metrics, Lisa, that you could think of that might impact the WIP? And I know I'm throwing this left field, so I apologize, but any other metrics that you think are important when you're considering how underbillings might be impacting the WIP?
Right. Well, I think what I love about this schedule too is you've got some ability to set the columns you want to see are important to you. You've got the ability to edit those columns to make it work for what you're used to looking at and what's important for your contracts. But I think, obviously being aware of if you've got a lost job coming up that, you've blown the estimate for some reason, you're going to have to get that job finished. You can monitor it closely, understand what that's going to impact your cash will be for those lost jobs. I think through this product, you've got real-time information of actual costs speeding up. And I love that about this product. That's what a lot of my customers are asking for is, okay, well, I wait till end of month, do my WIP schedule, and it's already too late to make any changes. So I love the real-time impact of seeing my actual costs flow up to that with the current estimated amounts we've got. So
yeah. So we talked about the need to bill, not only the timeliness and the accuracy, but also try to overbill as much as possible. And the next one is the accountability piece. So
right.
Love to hear what you have to share about this.
Right. Well, I think when we talk about the AR collection piece of this, it has been a little more of a manual effort. Typically, it involves a meeting with, your AR collections, your AR clerk and or maybe an owner or someone who's in the relationship with those customers to go, okay, what's my age AR looking like? What are my buckets for my 60, 90 days? Who's getting out there longer than we'd like? And then at some point, someone's accountable for making that collection discussion point with that customer. Some people are really good at that, and some people are really good at putting that off. So I think that is the hard part of trying to get the right people assigned to the right tasks so that communication stays open with those customers. Because the last thing you want is something that hangs out there 90 days and you realize there was some miscommunication. And if we would have just had an earlier discussion point, we would have got paid in 30 days versus 90 days. So I think keeping that top of mind and making sure you've got the right people who are taking ownership of that process and sending that communication out. And I know we're going to get into this. I love some of the tools you've added to the product to help facilitate that in an easy manner.
Yeah, I think so what we've done here at Pronovos is we try to consider the impact of trying to streamline the process. So again, I'm going back to the software. We rolled this out last year because we recognized that a lot of our clients were experiencing an increase in invoices that were aging 90 plus. And we wanted to test a hypothesis. We wanted to see if they had better communication, more effective communication, and be able to streamline, would it decrease their aging? And it was successful. So we said, wow, let's go ahead and make this part of the product. And so what you're seeing now is basically all of the invoices that you might have within your accounting system, and we age them. We make it, again, filtering is something that we know is really important. So we have the aging. We have even templates where you can create the language within the notifications. If it's greater than 90 days, maybe you want a stronger language. If it's 10 days or less, it could probably be a little softer. But basically what we're trying to do is let you go to a notification section. You could select all of these and you could say, okay, I want to approve these. And the moment it is approved, it's sending the invoice to your customers. Your customers can respond and follow up. We're trying to make you or help you focus on basically getting paid faster. We also noticed that sometimes retainage is hard to identify within your jobs. So what we've done is we've created the ability to identify all the jobs where you need to collect retainage. So if it's 100% complete, what have you billed and what's your retainage? Let's get paid on this. And that's what we're all about, is to streamline this type of information and help you get paid so that you're not experiencing the negative fallouts of AR management. So I will move on to I think this is, if I could say it, this is like, almost the god of construction, is cash flow management. Without it, we're in bad shape. So yeah, what's your insight on this?
Yeah, exactly. I think this is one of the more difficult things for companies to get a handle on. Every company is different, so there's some pieces of it that can flow between different companies, but obviously there's nuances that you need to customize for your specific business. But understanding when those future billings are expected to come and trying to lay that out in a cash flow plan is obviously critical. And Excel has been our friend for a long time to do that. But I'd love to see, and I know you're going to show this, some of the advances you've made in Pronovos to help us gather that data and information to one place so that we can share that information across the team.
Yeah, there's so many ways of doing cash flow management. I got to say, when we built this, as we were building this, I said, how in the world are we going to compete with the dynamic ability that Excel has? But when we started to learn more about the cash flow management by speaking with the hundreds of contractors that we work with, we recognized that there's a process that we can follow. And the process is really, let's look at essentially your line of credit. Let's include whatever the interest is on the line of credit. Let's look at other things related to when you believe you're going to get paid by your client, when you think you are going to pay your vendor, and let's factor all of this in to give you a cash flow. Let's look at all of your inflows, your outflows, and also there are always recurring expenses that you have. You can add those recurring expenses. What we want to do is give you an accurate, repeatable cash flow so you do not have to worry about getting into the minutia of the data. So this is Pronovos's latest release. It's the cash flow forecast. We're excited about it. It has gotten a great response, and AR collections, poor AR collections definitely impact your cash flow. So this is a great segue. And gosh, Lisa, it's 1:25. I'm going to just take a moment here and launch another poll. We have another poll that I'm going to send out in just a second. And for those that are there, I would be, again, remiss if I didn't ask you if you wanted to see a live demo of Pronovos. And while that poll is out, Pronovos, we try to provide analytics to the construction industry and make it very easy lift for you. We have pre-built dashboards. We call it the analytics marketplace. It's self-service, and we're just here to help, much like Lisa at Pinion. Is there anything else, Lisa, that you think you might want to share as it relates to the AR collections?
Yeah, I think what we just talked about, I'm really excited about that cash flow management tool and plugging that into the clients that we work with, because it's just so critical and it's ever dynamic. So I'm anxious to try to explore that more, and super excited for what that means for our client base. I do agree that everyone's battling the supply chain disruption and trying to make sure that we're staying flexible with that, trying to plan for as much as we can know and have a little bit of cushion for the unknown. Hopefully some of these prices will come down and we'll recoup some profits in these jobs that we had estimated higher costs on, and that will even out the day.
Yeah. We have a couple of minutes left. I'm just going to see if there are any questions. Let me just check here. Let's see. No questions. I think we must have done a really good job. So just for the audience, I wanted to let you know about another upcoming webinar. However, before I do that, Lisa, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, I assume lisa.ballman@Pinion Global. It's up here on the screen. That's where they can find you.
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Enjoy the opportunity to visit with any of you.
Absolutely. And so our next upcoming webinars, it's manual mess to data success. This is going to be given by Smith and Howard. It'll be a very exciting webinar. And then the next one is, I cannot wait to see this. It's the new product release revenue projection. So I want to thank you all for attending, and I hope you all have a great Wednesday. And Lisa, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for attending. I learned so much from you, and I look forward to a long partnership.
Oh, I agree. And I've learned so much from you as well. I look forward to working together further.
All right. Well, thank you all, and I hope you all have a great Wednesday.